All right. Let's jump in and let's talk about chapter 4. Okay. Chapter 4 is one of my favorite chapters because it deals with menu analysis. Okay. How many of you realize that whenever you look at a menu, that there's a whole psychology and science behind developing a menu? How many of you have ever been to a place that has a little symbol right next to specific menu items? They're like, what does that symbol usually represent? Like there's a little chili next to like on the Chili's menu, there's a little chili logo right next to specific menu items. What does that usually represent? It's a favorite, right? It's popular, okay? Um, how many of you realize when you open a menu, the place that you look the first is typically in the top right corner, okay? Or when you open a menu that is 3 sections, the center section is the place that you look first. Okay. There's a whole science behind how things are developed into menus, how things are presented in menus to help you guide you through and find those different things. How many of you have eaten at Cheesecake Factory? Okay. What is their menu like? It's what? It's long. It's basically a spiral bound notebook, right? When I was there, when I worked at the Cheesecake Factory, we had to memorize all 200 menu items by sight. Our final exam to pass server training was literally a slideshow, and it was just a picture of the plate. And we had to write the full name of that menu item. We had a blank packet of paper that had lines number 1 through 200. We couldn't write the micros name, the computer name. We had to write the full name of that menu item, including the cheesecakes by sight, right? Because as a server, it's important that I pick up the correct dish. When I get my ticket, I'm not picking up something incorrect, because if I do and I take it to the table, well, now I can't serve that. I can't take it back to the kitchen. Once it hits the table, I can't put it back to the kitchen and then give it to their table. So as a server, it's important that I know that. Okay. I also learned through my time at TGI Fridays that we as servers are salespeople. And the faster you can get people in and out of your table, what does that mean for you as a server? More money, more tips, right? So how do you think I want my guests at Cheesecake Factory? Now they're going to be flipping through this menu, and they're going to be like, "Oh, I don't even know what I want to eat. There's 200 different choices." Okay, and so what I would do is I would do suggestive selling. As a server, I learned that salads were on page 11, pizzas were on page 12, entrees were on page 16, sandwiches were on page 14. So I'd ask them, what are you in the mood for? Rather than just saying, oh, let me look through this whole menu. I'm in the mood for a pizza. Great. Go to that page and make a decision. Okay. And it helps them choose a lot faster. Okay. um, there are some things that affect our menu pricing as restaurant owners. Okay. Some external factors is our competition. Some external factors are our competition. How does our competition impact our selling prices on our menu? Yeah, so if another restaurant is cheaper, it's right next door, your guests may go there, right? A while back, Pizza Hut did a promotion where all their large pizzas were $10, right? And you could put whatever toppings you wanted on that large pizza. Now, if you're on the app and you've selected more than I think 4 or 5 toppings, you get a little error message that's like, whoa, hold on. Our pizzas are best enjoyed with 5 or less toppings, right? And so now I think they have it where it's like a large 3-topping pizza, right? They have it built into the cost. If you order more than 3 toppings, they'll add on to that. But how many pizza places do you think all of a sudden we're like, whoa, Pizza Hut's doing this $10 large pizza. We need to figure out how can we be a little bit more competitive. Okay. Same thing with Little Caesars. We used to have the $5 hot and ready. I don't think it's $5 anymore, but it used to be is it still $5? 7? Okay. Maybe depending on what you get. So yeah, the hot and ready pizza, how did that change how other pizza places were doing their own? How they were pricing their own, right? People weren't willing to, if they could go and pick up a pizza that was a pepperoni pizza for $5, they may not be willing to spend $13, $14 on a pizza somewhere else. Okay. Now, things that we can impact our selling prices is also the quality, that price value. Okay. That price value relationship. We don't have any control over that, but the guest has to find value in the price that they are paying. If the guest does not find value in the price that they are paying, they're not going to pay for it. You could have the most amazing chicken sandwich, but if you charge too much for it and people don't find the value in the price that they're paying, they're not going to buy it. We also have the demand driven. So the market driven, that's our competitors. Demand driven pricing, that's another external factor. How many of you have gone to a concert at the AT&T Center or the Frostbank Center concert, or the rodeo, or a Spurs game to watch them lose? How many, right? If you want that, do they still have a Whataburger there? I haven't been there in a long time. Okay. So if you want a Whataburger while you watch the Spurs lose, how much do you have to pay for that? Sorry, I'm on some. You want to eat a Whataburger while you watch your favorite artist perform. How much more are you paying for that Whataburger than if you went through your drive-through on the way home? Significantly more, right? It's the same burger, nothing different, same burger and fries. Okay. But that's demand driven, meaning you really want to eat your burger while you're watching that show or that concert or that sporting event, you got to pay that price. Same thing in airports. I can't leave the airport to go get a Whataburger and come back. If I want to eat Whataburger in the airport, I've got to pay that price right there. So demand driven pricing, that is where people don't really necessarily have a choice. So we can charge a little bit more. Now, chances are that restaurant is paying a pretty significant price to be in that venue. They're paying like a rental fee. So that has to go into the consideration of the price as well. Okay. And then the last one is the markup differentiation, which we'll talk about as we go through the project. But the markup differentiation is essentially there's certain categories to which we assign a different percentage. We can't have the same percentage markup in all the categories. So typically items like appetizers, which are more protein based, and our entree sandwiches, they typically are going to have that larger percentage because the cost of the ingredient costs us more, right? So they're going to have a larger percentage markup. Sorry, I take that back. They're going to have a smaller percentage markup. They're going to have a larger food cost percentage in order to accommodate for that. Beverages, they have a pretty high markup, which means that the cost of their beverage is a lot smaller compared to the actual item. So let's talk beverages and 10%. Okay. So 10% beverage cost. If we apply a 10% beverage cost, and we're looking for the sales number, how much should we sell it for? How much does a beverage usually cost us? Okay, so it costs us as a consumer, right? But think about how much it costs us as an employer to make that beverage. And let's talk about soda. for example. Soda, what do we think when we take a soda out of the soda fountain? What do you think that costs us? Okay, 5 cents. I'm gonna say, let's say 15 cents just to be generous. It's way more than that's way less than that, but just to be generous, right? If we take 15 cents divided by 10%, what do we get? $1.50. That's what we should sell it for. When was the last time you saw a beverage on a menu for $1.50? Before COVID, okay. Yeah, possibly. Now they're usually what? $2, $2.95, right? For a tea, a soda, things like that. Now, let's take this same 10% concept and let's apply it to a $45 steak. So our $45 steak, and we want 10%, how much should we sell it for? We should sell it for how much? Based on the mathematical problem. $450. How many guests do you think are buying a $450 steak? Probably not many. Okay. And so as a result, we cannot apply this same 10% to all menu items. With our larger cost items, we have to apply a larger food cost percentage. Okay. So even at 50% food cost, $45 steak divided by 50% is a $90 steak. Okay. That's more on price point. Okay. $90 steak for a steak that costs the restaurant $45. That's pretty much on point for the price on a menu, $90 for a steak. You're going to find that more like a prime steakhouse, a fine dining steakhouse. Okay, you're not going to find a $90 steak on Texas Roadhouse or Outback Steakhouse, right? Um, those steaks probably don't cost as much in order to purchase them. Okay, it's a different quality meat. The first time I went to a fine dining steakhouse, I had a $40 gift card that I won in a raffle, and I was like, wow, $40. I didn't realize that $40 was like half of one steak. And so yeah, it was an eye-opening experience for sure. Thankfully, I had just paid my credit card, so I didn't have to go overdrawn. All right. So now we have a couple of different ways. Number two, the four different methods to determine our menu selling price. The first one is our factor method. Okay. The first one is our factor method. We also have the food cost percentage method. That's the second one. Food cost percentage method, the factor method. We also have the contribution margin method. And I believe the Q factor is the last one. So those four we're going to go over. So the food cost percentage, what do we use to calculate the food cost percentage method? The triangle. Okay, so that's the answer number three. Number three, to calculate the food cost percentage method, we use the triangle tool. To use the factor method, we're going to divide 100 by the desired percentage. Okay, we're going to divide 100 by the desired percentage, and then we're going to multiply the recipe cost by that factor. So we take 100. That's a really bad one. Hold on. 100% divided by 20% gives me what? What's 100 divided by 20? 5. My factor is 5. That means all I have to do is multiply. So if we look at number 4, letter A, for letter A is 100 divided by 20 equals 5. For B is $2.50 times 5. And that equals $2.50 times 5, $12.50. Okay. Oftentimes you'll hear chefs say, calculate in their head, they'll think about the menu selling price. They'll take whatever the cost is and they'll times it by 3. Okay. When they times it by 3, they're using essentially a 33% food cost. Essentially, they're using a 33% food cost just by multiplying by 3. So the factor method can be a lot faster, right? Instead of trying to take $2.50 divided by 0.25, we can figure out the factor of 0.25 is 4. And so I can just multiply 250 times 4. So sometimes the factor method is a little bit easier. So our factor method in this case for 250, our food cost percentage, our factor is 4. So we multiply and we get $10. What is our factor for 30%? $3 or 3.33. So we multiply $3 times 3.33 and we get do we agree? Is that right? I just did that in my head, so I don't know if it's right or not. We're good? Okay, just want to make sure. What is our factor for 40%? 2.5. So I can take 15.25 times 2.5. That's my factor. And what is my selling price? $38.13, okay. And then the last one, what's 100 divided by 10? 10. So 15 cents times 10 is $1.50. We already had that one. Okay. So this is what I'm doing based on the factor method. So let's talk about contribution margin. So to calculate the menu price using the contribution margin, we need to add the non-food cost and the profit. So the non-food cost and the profit. What is the non-food cost? What's an example of a non-food cost? Okay, they could be controllable, they could not be. What's a specific example of a non-food cost in a restaurant? Sorry? Wages. Okay. What else? The utilities. Okay. What else? Rent. Your Spotify subscription so you can play music. Okay. All of those things are non-food costs. And then we also want to factor in our profit as well. So we want to add those two together and we divide by the number of guests. So 5B is divide by the number of guests. And then lastly, we take whatever that contribution margin is and just simply add it to our menu price, or sorry, to our cost, so that we can get our menu price. So what is our non-food cost of 5,000 and profit? What if we add those? Letter A is 5,000 plus 3,000 equals what? $8,000. Okay. So our non-food cost and our profit is 8,000. Letter B is we take $8,000, we divide by the number of guests. And what do we get? 8,000 divided by 2,000 is $4 per guest. Okay. So now we add $4. That's our contribution margin. So what's $4 plus 250? $6.50. $4 plus 3, 7. $4 plus 15, 25. And then $4 plus 15 cents. Okay. So let's take a look at our previous examples. $6.50 compared to $10. The contribution margin came out less than our factor method. $7 versus $9.99. Again, the contribution margin came out less. $19.25 compared to $38.13. That's significantly less. And then lastly, $4.15 compared to $1.50. That's significantly more. This is where we have to take into consideration the price-value relationship. Is somebody going to pay $4.15 for an iced tea, or would they probably spend $1.50, or maybe somewhere in between? If something costs me $15.25 to make it, and I only sell it for $19.25, okay, now granted, my profit, my ideal profit is built into that price. But if I can take that same thing that cost me $15.25 to make it, and I can sell it for $38, do you think I should sell it for $38? If people would buy it, if they find the value in it and they want to pay that price, then sure, why not? We have a situation downstairs on the second floor. We have this pastry shop that's sitting there, right? And we sell, not very often because we don't have a whole lot of product to sell, but we sell a lot of the stuff that is made in the pastry classes. Okay. So I think last week they were selling pies and tarts, and then they also sold bread. Well, we have an issue where we can only take credit cards, and credit cards have to be a minimum of $5 purchases. We can't sell anything less than $5, right? And so we sell the pies for $5, and we sell out in 10 minutes. And then we raise the price. I'm like, guys, let's raise the price to $6. Let's raise the price to $7, $8, $9. And then if we start seeing that we're not having products sold, well, then now we know that $8 was the max that people are willing to pay. So if we just start with $5, we only ever sell it for $5, we don't know the potential of what we could make, right? And so that's that price value relationship. You can add on the price, and then once people realize that they're not willing to pay that price, maybe we need to come back down. Okay, but we don't ever know that earning potential if we don't try. That's why hotel rooms and airline tickets, they're gonna try to get as much as possible, and then if it's not selling, they're gonna go ahead and decrease those rates potentially to try to get people in. Okay. The last one is the Q factor method. Where are we at on time? We're good. Okay. So last one is the Q factor method. That's on the back side. So the number 6 is the Q factor. That Q factor relates to all the things that are complimentary or free, right? So if you purchase an entree and you get a free salad that comes with it, the cost of that salad is built into the cost of that entree. You get free chips and salsa, or you get free tortillas, or you get free bread at a restaurant. Ideally, that cost should be built into the cost of the entrees. If not, you're giving away product, you're not getting any sales from it, and it's going to add up in the long run. Okay. So that Q factor is basically the cost of all the complementary items that come with it. So if we use the example up here on the board for barbecue, each of these items, the recipe cost for each of these items that are coming free with the entree, we add all that up and we get $3.43. So now if I add that to the actual cost of my brisket plate or my sausage plate or whatever, my brisket is $2.91. The barbecue sauce is 41 cents. All of this free stuff is $3.43. So I'm going to sell it for $6.75. Okay, that's called the Q factor. Questions, comments, concerns about the Q factor? We also are going to talk about Q factor in the project in a different way, but it also kind of goes into helping cover the cost of the ingredients. Okay. All right. So in number 7, we're going to draw this diagram. And we're going to talk about this diagram today, and then we will finish up how we fill out this diagram next class on Wednesday. All right, I added a little bit to it, the words high and low. And so the second half of chapter 4, essentially we're going to be talking about how well our menu is working for us. Sometimes the problem is the menu. Sometimes the problem is the recipes. Okay. But we're going to be talking about how well our menu is actually working for us. And so this is a type of a diagram that you're going to see a lot when you're comparing two different criteria and putting it into one of 4 categories. Okay. So the way that we look at this is if an item is highly popular, that means everybody loves it, right? And it has a high profitability or a contribution margin, those two line up at the star. So star is high popularity and high contribution margin. If we have low profitability, meaning it's below the average, which we're going to go into a little bit later. This is a brief introduction, but it's still highly popular. That is our plow horse. That means people love it, but for whatever reason, doesn't make us a whole lot of money. The contribution margin is lower than the average. Next, we have low popularity. People don't seem to like this particular item, but it makes us a lot of money. It's highly profitable. That's our puzzle. Low popularity, high contribution margin. The way I remember that is another word of using puzzle is like, you're confused. I'm puzzled. So I'm puzzled why people don't like it. That makes me a lot of money. So I want to keep selling it, but I'm puzzled or I'm confused as to why people don't like it. So it's low popularity. And then the last one, low popularity, and it doesn't make us a lot of money, is our dog. Please don't ask me where these names came from because I don't know. Now, if we have a dog on our menu, does that mean we just get rid of it? No, why? What would be a situation where you might have a dog on the menu, but you don't want to get rid of it? Be a vegetarian option. If we're at a steakhouse and we have a vegetarian option, and it's our only vegetarian option, we may not want to get rid of it just because it's our only vegetarian option. Okay, what else? Okay, so maybe the ingredients in it make it to where people can't purchase it because of the allergens that they have. Okay, cool. What could we do to get it out of the dog category? So what's that? Okay, so if we lowered the price, possibly, if we lowered the price, that could potentially move it up into that puzzle category, right? Try to advertise it. Yeah, marketing it. How many of you have ever been to a restaurant? They have those little like table tents that have little different things on them, right? Well, I worked at Chester's Hamburgers in high school, and when I was working at Chester's Hamburgers, we had burgers, chicken sandwiches, and hot dogs. That was it. Okay. Now they have salads, they have wings, they have ice cream. They have all these different things that are on the menu that maybe people who have been going there for a long time have never considered because they walk right up to the cash register and they order exactly what they've always ordered every time they go. And so while they're waiting for their food, they have those little table tents that you can flip through and be like, oh, I didn't realize you have ice cream. I didn't realize you had wings, right? And that might inspire people to purchase them. That's where that little symbol comes into play. That little symbol next to the Chili's menu or any other menu, is it really popular? Or is it really just designed for you to draw your attention to it because it has a high contribution margin? They want you to buy it because it gives them a large profit margin. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to make it more popular by drawing your attention to it. I get a little not cynical. That's kind of extreme. But I'm just like, is this really a favorite? Is this really popular? Or are you just trying to make me buy this? I'm going to buy something different just because I think you want me to buy this. And so that's how the menus are developed. That's how the menus are designed to help you. There's even psychology behind the menu pricing. So if something is $17 on the menu versus $16.95, psychology says, and Mr. Uminsky proves the point, that I'm like, oh, that's only $16. Although it's literally 5 cents less than 17, In my mind, I look at that, I'm like, oh, that's only $16. Right? And there's psychology behind that. How many times have you seen? Sometimes it's better to have just whole numbers. Sometimes it's better to have dollars and cents. It all depends on the clientele. So we are going to, let me clear the screen real quick. We are going to go over the contribution margin and the popularity index next class. So we're going to go over all of this next class on Wednesday to determine where things are. We just talked a little bit about our menu modifications and price adjustments. As we make price adjustments, as we make modifications to maybe our recipes, our ingredient costs are too high. And so we can lower our recipes cost, and that could change how our contribution margin goes into it. Okay. So we can talk about those as we go through. And then also on your chapter 4 exam, you're going to do 2 different scenarios where you are doing a menu analysis and you're going to see how the categories change. And so we want to look at, is the menu the problem? Is it designed odd? Is it the recipes? You know, when I worked at TGI Fridays, they did a rollout of a new menu and they had a meatloaf sandwich on the new menu. It was awful. It was disgusting. Right? And so my guests one time they were regular guests and they're like, you know, what do you recommend? And have you had this? And I'm like, well, you know, my mom really likes it. Because then that way, if they get upset and they don't like it, it's not my fault, it's my mom's fault. And it doesn't affect my tip. And so in that case, sometimes we have to realize maybe the recipes are the problem versus you know, sometimes we think we know what people love to eat, but sometimes they don't love exactly what we love. Is the problem operational? So are we not suggestively selling? Are we not upselling? Are we not training our staff to do those types of things to help drive those menu items? Okay. And so once we then decide to implement any kind of revisions, we have to then do the analysis all over again to see if our revisions were effective or not. And that's what we're going to do on Wednesday. Okay. On Wednesday, we are going to meet downstairs in room 303 because we're going to have a luncheon in here on Wednesday afternoon. In my next class today is going to set up the dining room today. So we will not have class in here. We'll have class in room 303 downstairs, right, on Wednesday. All right. Thank you so much. Dominic, Andre, and Amber. Either one of y'all 3 come in? Okay.